In a highly publicized move that has stirred significant discussion about privacy, media responsibility, and the rights of individuals under investigation, a South Korean civic organization has formally filed a criminal complaint against both a tax official and a journalist in connection with the unlawful disclosure of confidential tax investigation information involving Cha Eun, the popular singer, actor, and member of the K-pop group ASTRO, in a controversy that reflects broader tensions in Korean society over the protection of personal data and the treatment of celebrities by the press. The complaint, lodged with the National Office of Investigation under the Korean National Police Agency on February 10 by the Korea Taxpayers Association, alleges that an unnamed tax official who had access to Cha Eun-woo's tax audit details and the reporter who first published those details violated the Personal Information Protection Act and breached criminal provisions against the disclosure of official secrets, arguing that the leak of specific elements of the tax audit not only contravened the confidentiality principles enshrined in the Framework Act on National Taxes but also unfairly exposed an individual's private financial matters to the public, potentially causing irreparable harm to Cha Eun-woo's reputation and personal rights, and raising serious concerns about the management and oversight of sensitive taxpayer information by public institutions. According to the Civic group, such disclosures should never occur simply because a person is a public figure, since the confidentiality of tax records is a cornerstone of the tax system and a fundamental guarantee of trust between citizens and the state, and must apply uniformly to all taxpayers regardless of fame or social status, thereby reinforcing the idea that the presumption of innocence and the protection of personal data should be upheld until any allegations are conclusively proven in proper legal proceedings. The group specifically cited the tragic case of the late actor Lee Sun-kyun, whose own ordeal with leaked investigation details prior to his death in late 2023 sparked national debate about media ethics and the devastating impact that unverified, pre-indictment information can have on individuals subjected to intense scrutiny, asserting that Korea should not allow a repeat of such outcomes where the premature publication of sensitive investigative material contributed to irreversible damage to a person's dignity and human rights, a warning underscored by the recent involvement of Cha Eun-woo, who has publicly acknowledged the situation and, while serving in the Army military band, expressed regret and pledged to cooperate with ongoing procedures but has not been formally charged with a crime. In the complaint, the Civic group argued that only officials directly involved in the investigation or those in the approval chain would have knowledge of the detailed tax audit information that appeared in media reports, making it highly likely that an internal leak occurred, and thereby underscoring the need for a thorough investigation into how such information was circulated outside the tax office, how it reached the press, and what safeguards were lacking in the National Tax Service's internal controls to prevent unauthorized disclosures, stressing that public trust in tax administration relies heavily on the belief that sensitive taxpayer information is handled with the utmost care. In insisting that their action is not intended to defend or shield any particular celebrity, the civic organization highlighted that its broader objective is to protect the sanctity of tax confidentiality for all citizens and to uphold the legal and ethical standards that bind public officials and journalists alike, emphasizing that the principles of fairness, privacy, and the rule of law must not be eroded by sensational reporting or breaches of duty by individuals entrusted with privileged access to private data. This stance draws attention to the complex interplay between the public's right to information, media freedoms, and an individual's right to privacy and due process, a debate that has intensified with the rise of social media and the rapid dissemination of news that can shape public opinion before facts are fully established, potentially creating lasting stigma even if allegations are later disproven, thus raising questions about how to balance transparency with the rights of subjects under investigation. The complaint also names the journalist who first reported the tax audit information, asserting that by publishing privileged details without sufficient regard for verification and legal boundaries, the reporter contributed to an environment in which personal financial matters became fodder for speculation and public judgment, a dynamic that can be especially harmful in the context of high-profile figures such as Cha Eun-woo, whose career spans music, acting, and advertising, making him a household name both domestically and internationally, and whose public image carries significant commercial and cultural weight. This underscores why many observers argue that extra care must be taken in reporting on investigations involving celebrities, not to grant them special treatment, but to ensure that media coverage does not amplify unproven allegations into public consensus before due process has concluded, a principle rooted in the broader notion of equal treatment under the law. Beyond the immediate legal action, The case has revived conversations in South Korea about the responsibilities of government agencies to protect sensitive data, the ethical standards journalists must observe when reporting on ongoing investigations, and the societal impact of publicizing unverified information, especially in an era where news travels instantaneously around the world, affecting not only the subjects involved but also public perceptions of justice and fairness. Critics of the initial leak have called on the National Tax Service to review and strengthen its internal protocols to safeguard taxpayer data more effectively, while legal experts emphasize the importance of maintaining strict confidentiality as a deterrent against misuse of insider knowledge, a stance that resonates with broader democratic values and the protection of individual liberties. As the legal process unfolds, the Civic Group's complaint has brought renewed focus to the need for structural reforms and a cultural shift toward greater respect for personal privacy and procedural integrity, inviting lawmakers, media organizations, and civic actors to engage in a nuanced discourse about how to reconcile the public's interest in accountability with the imperative to uphold the dignity and legal protections of all individuals, regardless of their status or celebrity, in order to foster a more just and